The greatest resource is resourcefulness, Tony Robbins once said. And I couldn't agree more. But does that really help you? Probably not. How can you become more resourceful rather than just wanting to be more resourceful? Well, I think it first starts out with defining how do we use the word resource in NLP, because there is a very specific way that we use that term. It is a part of the NLP jargon, and it's not quite how it's typically used in day-to-day language. But before I get into that, next week I will be doing a free live training where we're going to take a much deeper dive into how to do what we're going to talk about in this video. And so it is next week, which you want to sign up now. In the description right here down below, there you will see a link. Click on that link and get signed up before these spots run out. Again, this is free. It will be live. It will be engaging, and it will be next week. So make sure you sign up for that. So how do we use this term resource in NLP? When I first start coaching someone, especially someone who has no background in NLP, and I say, what's a resource or possibly multiple resources that would enable you to do what it is that you want to do, or would enable you to achieve the fulfillment that you want to achieve? And a lot of times people go, well, what do you mean resource? Because we tend to think of resources as those things outside of ourselves. Money is a big resource. The right connections would be another resource. So we tend to think about resources as something external. But in NLP, the way that we think about resources, and this is more your old school NLP, is basically you're only a resource or two or three, or one, two, maybe three resources is all that stands between you and having what it is that you want. In old school NLP, you have the present state, and you have the desired state. So the present state is I want whatever it is that I don't have. The desired state is, well, now I have whatever it is that I don't have. Now, why do I say state instead of like some sort of object or thing? Well, that's because really what it is you want to experience is what you want, not necessarily the object itself. If you want a car, it's not that you want a car, it's you want the experience that you believe having that car will bring you, or when you actually do drive that car and have that car, whatever experience that brings you, it's actually the experience that you want. It's not the thing. And the same with money. We don't just want green paper. We want the experience that lots of that green paper will give us. So there is the present state, the state of being in desire of something. Then there's the desired state, the state that I want to be in. And in between that are whatever missing resources there are. So the idea behind this is that if I can define the state that I'm in now, basically being able to define what it is that I want, and that I don't have it right now, that's where I start, right? We have to know where we're starting. And then I can define the outcome that I want, which is the desired state. I want to be in this state of, feeling or experiencing this. And then we also believe that there's some sort of external object or accomplishment we need to have in order to do it. But NLP says, no, not so fast. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. There's nothing wrong with achieving it or having it, but it's really about what resources, internal resources, do you need to experience that now? And if you experience that now, then you're coming at this from a state of abundance and wholeness rather than desperation and lack. So what are these internal resources? These internal resources show up as intangibles. So they're not knowledge, they're not skills, because knowledge and skills are things that you have to cultivate, and resources are things that are just within you. And they really always have been in some form. So a resource could be playfulness, determination, motivation. A resource could be a sense of humor. It could be creativity. It could be curiosity. What is it that you're missing that's keeping you from being in your desired state? And there's a saying or a presupposition in NLP that we all have all of the resources, all of the internal resources we need to accomplish anything. And so when you approach accomplishing something this way, well, then you are presupposing that the resources are there, whatever the resources are that you need. And so you are more likely to find them if you're already presupposing that they're there. And in my experience working with clients and also working on myself, yes, they are indeed always there. Accessing them is the trick, though. Accessing them can actually be part of the problem that we run into. Now, let's bring this to extremes so we can understand better what it is that I'm talking about. So what would be a resourceless state? If you think about a state where you have no access to any resource within yourself. What would that be like? Well, that's what we call panic. When you're in a state of panic, it's because you're not accessing any of your resources. And so you're freaking out. And that's why they say in a crisis, don't panic. Well, why? Well, because you've lost all access to all of your resources. And when you're in a state of fear or extreme anger, any of these extreme feelings will narrow your focus and block out or push out access to resources. So when you get hyper focused, which some cases we need to be, we're hyper focused and we're not flexible, then we're not accessing lots of resources. We're only accessing very few or none at all. And panic is a hyper focus. Anger focuses you. Fear focuses you. And so the tendency is when we go into those states, we push out our resources, or we lose access to our resources. We're limited now because our focus is limited. What comes first when it comes to panic? The loss of a sense or the loss of access to your resources? Does that induce panic? Or is it the panic that induces your loss of access to those resources? I'm not sure. It's kind of a chicken and the egg sort of debate. I know that if I sit here and I start imagining like one by one, like blocking myself off from all of my resources, it sort of starts to induce that panic. But again, panic might be induced by some sort of recognition that I don't have any resources or I can't access my resources, and then I start to panic. So who knows what comes first, but I think you get the idea now. Now, what would be the polar opposite? What would be a state of being within access or having access to all of your resources as you choose? Well, that would be a state of flow. And if you think about it, if you've ever been in a state of flow, you're not angry, you're not fearful, you're not in any sort of hyper focus, you're sort of in a sort of loose focus, and you're very flexible and you're very adjustable. And there's a lack of a sense of self-consciousness. You're not even aware of self really as a concept. Of course, you're being very present. You're being very aware, you're being very flexible, adjustable, and it's like you can just grab any resource you need at the moment. So that would be the opposite of panic. So flow would be sort of an ultimate resourceful state. So how do we access resources if we want to access resources and we're feeling like we're being unresourceful? Well, the first thing is to relax. Anytime you do any meditation or you do hypnosis, what do you start off doing? Maybe some breathing exercises or any way to help you relax. When you're relaxed, that awareness opens up again, and now you can gain access to your resources. Well, the other thing that you need to do is you need to identify what resources you need. And so if I am realizing, okay, I need to, here's my desired state, or this is what I want to accomplish, and then I say, okay, well, what resources do I need in order to accomplish that? Well, now I have an understanding of what it is that I need to access within myself. It's really hard to go access something when you don't know what it is that you need to access. So that would be a huge first step. So getting relaxed, then identifying the resources is essential. And then remembering times when you were accessing that resource. And this might take a little bit of time to do this. You would ask yourself, okay, here's the resource I need. I need more playfulness, which is great for learning, by the way. And so you think about that and you go, when was the time that I was really playful? And even better, if it is playful that is similar to what it is I need that resource for. So maybe it's playful so that I can learn faster, learn better. So I go back into my memories, I find one, and so I reference that experience. And upon referencing that experience, you have to access the resource to know what it is that you're looking for. So that would be one way that you could access that resource. Now, some people will say, well, can you just anchor that in? Isn't that a good thing to anchor? And I used to believe that. That's the way that I was taught. It's kind of an old school NLP, but there's something you can do that's even better, much, much better. And that is to take that resource and look at it as a quality of being. And you can even ask yourself, okay, yes, I know I have this resource, but am I this resource as a quality of who I am? So for example, authenticity would be a resource, by the way. And it's a great one because when we access that resource of authenticity, also what comes with it is freedom. And that's a very high value for a lot of people. It's a resource, but it's also a quality. It's also a value. And I've done a video on this. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So if you think about this quality of authenticity, which is also a resource, You might say, okay, yeah, I can access it as a resource because I remember a time, or can remember several times where it was very authentic. But if I were to ask myself, am I authentic as a person? I kind of get this this ambiguity here. Like I feel like I am sometimes and sometimes I'm not. Well, then that lets you know that this quality is not certain and solid. And if you value this quality and it's not certain and solid, it will have effect on your self-esteem. You won't feel very good about yourself. And this is where we can take the work of resources and identifying resources and becoming more resourceful, and we can totally supercharge it. And so how we do that is we take these resources that we value, of course, and we turn them into certain and solid qualities of our self-concept. How do we do this? Well, that's what Steve Andreas created the self-concept model for, to install qualities and make them certain and solid. And when you do this, when you take a quality that you value or even a resource that you value and you turn it into a certain and solid quality because you value it, your confidence and your self-esteem goes up. And then it also becomes more of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And even better than that, because it's a part of who you are, your identity now, it doesn't feel like something that comes and goes. It feels like it's always here. It's always natural, just like any other quality that you would be certain about yourself. If you really want to take being resourceful to the next level, then you would take resources that you value, that you find very useful in many situations in your life, and transform them into qualities that are certain and solid within your identity. One thing I've noticed is that people will confuse resources, qualities, and values. And in fact, some people will start to say, well, isn't it all just the same thing? And no, they're not. Though the words themselves will often be the same. So like courage. Courage is a value. You can value courage. It's a resource. And it's also a quality. So what makes it different when I call it one word or the other, whether I call it a resource, a quality, or a value? I did a video where I go into really hashing that out, really describing the differences of all of that for my membership group. And it's a very popular video in that group, and people, especially new students, are often referred to that video because they get confused by that. Now, it was done for this group, this exclusive group, but if you would like to see this video, if you'd like me to publish it here on my YouTube channel, let me know in the comment section down here below. If enough people want it, I'll go ahead and make it available here on my YouTube channel. Now you may be wondering, okay, Damon, tell me more about how to take a resource and transform it into a quality that is certain and solid in my identity. How do I do that? Well, not only have I done several videos about that, and not only that, I can't put it all into one simple YouTube video. The training that I'm doing next week, we take a deep dive into that. I show you exactly how we do that. So if you want to know more about this, if you want to go deeper with this and understand how you can take a resource and transform it into a quality that is at the identity level of who you are, then make sure you go down to the description below and click that link and sign up for the training that we will be doing. It's going to be free. It's going to be live. You don't want to miss this. Make sure you sign up. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out, which is typically Wednesdays and Saturdays. And last but not least, if you can think of a friend or a family member who would really benefit from this video, make sure you share it with them. Take care.